Hey everyone, welcome back to the lab. In this video, we're going to be talking about 3 validations every software engineer should run before starting a side project. So I build a lot of side projects, but I have way more project ideas than I can ever build. 3,381 at time of writing. Choosing a bad idea means less resources to devote to good ideas. And so here I'll share my simple validation framework for choosing side project ideas that are worthwhile, and avoid sinking resources into ones that aren't. Goals of a side project. So it's important to take into account the goals of a side project to make sure that the validation framework filters to project ideas that align. Typically, my goal with the side project is to 1. Build something useful and interesting, 2. Learn about a technology or domain, and 3. Just have fun building it. Now this differs a bit from a project you might pick up to turn into a business, as it doesn't really take market size, profitability, etc. into account, and probably differs from, projects you would build for other domains as well, like something like art or research or something like that. So depending on what you're building and what your goals are, your validation framework itself might change as well. Now for me, this usually means that my side projects also have some unique constraints on them. The first is resources. So a lot of my side projects don't make any money at all. They usually just cost me money. And so if a side project costs too much money to either build in the first place or to maintain ongoing, then it can't really be sustainable because it cuts off my resources from going to new projects that I want to build. The second is on energy. So if this side project drains a lot of energy in terms of just soul-sucking work that I don't want to do, or it takes a lot of hours or manual labor, then this can lead to burnout across my entire life. This is not my main thing, and so if I'm doing this random thing on the side that also is draining my energy, that's not really good to lead a balanced life. And finally, on time. So I don't have 40 hours a week to work on these side projects. Usually I have closer to like 4, which might be 1 or 2 nights during the week that I might work on this stuff. So if I can't do a project in a couple hours, then it's pretty unlikely that it's actually going to get done. And so projects that don't fit into those few hours are probably bad projects for me to pick up anyway. Okay, so some of those context on like the goals of my side project and the constraints that I have around building them, I want to talk about my side project validation framework. So my side project validation framework is a lightweight way to check that a given project aligns with my goals. It is not perfect, but it filters down my ideas enough to filter out the ones that obviously don't align so that I can take a closer look at the ones that do and select from those. And so basically it boils down to 3 things and 3 validations to determine if this makes sense or not. And so I like to focus on projects that build something that people want and that I want. I found that, if people don't want it, then this is probably not useful. It's probably not solving a problem or a need or a desire that actually exists. And I've also found that if I don't want it, then I'm probably not interested enough to actually do the work to make this to fruition. And so I put these in the same bucket, like, is this something that actually people want and something that I want? Then that might be something of interest for me to make. The second one is it needs to be something I'm good at. So I want to be able to build something reasonable within 1 week and often closer to a few hours. Again, kind of trying to fit this stuff into 4 hours. This doesn't mean that the whole thing gets finished in 4 hours, but it must mean that something reasonable gets finished, some really good progress can get finished in those 4 hours. Because if not, then it's unlikely that I will actually have the time and focus and interest in actually making this thing happen, and thus it probably won't be worthwhile because it'll just be some wasted work that I throw away later. And finally, this needs to be something that I enjoy. So at the end of the day, this is a hobby, so if I'm not enjoying the process, what's the point? And this is really focused on the work required to actually do this stuff. There's a lot of things that people want, that you might want, and that you can do in a few hours, but that you might not actually like doing. And at that point, it kind of turns into more work for you with very little reward. So it doesn't really make sense. So basically what I do is I validate each project before I take it on, and not all projects hit all buckets or all validations, but most of the ones that I take on do. Now for a deeper dive into all of these validations, including some examples that might be kind of surprising about ones that do pass and don't pass from my own life, you can check out this longer post, how to validate side project ideas and build projects that you are proud of. All right, now onto prioritizing my list of side projects. So I have way more ideas than I could ever build in this lifetime, and so I use my validation framework to help bubble up projects that fit my values and stay away from projects that don't. And so the way that I do this and actually implement this validation framework into my own life and creation cycle is basically I keep all my projects in a giant Trello board. Each of these has some custom fields or checkboxes for each validation, so I have 3 checkboxes. And then I have a custom sort on my board to move the cards with more validations checked to the top. And so you can imagine that I click the sort button and it sorts all my ideas based on the checkboxes that I've added to them. So at the top is those with 3 checkboxes, and then it slowly goes down to ones that only check 1. And then each month I sort these ideas so that the best ones come to the top. I create a new list. I usually do like a monthly or quarterly list of ideas to keep the ones that are fresh and still top of mind kind of bubbled up to the top. And then I move the best ones over. So the ones that, fit most of my buckets, the ones that I'm still excited about building and that I still think make sense, into that new one so I can push it forward. And then I select a few to prioritize, usually like 1, maybe 2 a month that come from my lists that I'm actually interested in pursuing. And for a deeper dive into this and like kind of how I set that up, you can look at how I run my project backlogs with Trello. Next. So I love creating stuff. So this validation framework really helps me create more things that align with my values and stay away from those that don't. Your values may differ from mine, so this one might not work for you, but hopefully it gives you some ideas for validations that you can use on your own project ideas. Question for you is, how do you organize and validate project ideas yourself? If you like this post, you might also like my career as a software engineer so far. You might also be interested in 3 areas I'm exploring to build more side projects faster and cheaper. And finally, my journey from software engineer to entrepreneur and back again. That's it for this video. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.